Hi, my name is Marguerite Tonry, and I'm here with Lorcan O'Connor. Now, Lorcan O'Connor is debut author with a debut novel with Tribes Press. He is local to Galway City, and I just decided we'd talk for a little while. Is that okay, Lorcan? We talk about your book, talk about your ideas around writing. Yeah. So tell
Yeah.
us, what inspired you to write?
There was a lot of things, definitely. There was a lot of things. I always had an interest in English and the written word. Um, I mean, I remember as a kid writing stories just for the fun of it, you know. Now they weren't as quite as raw as this book, but um, I started probably when I was about 7 or 8,
Oh,
maybe.
fantastic. Yeah.
And and then kind of with this particular book, it was a combination of things. It was probably a bit of boredom and really a lot of desire to get something out there for people to read my stuff. You know, that was the main thing.
Yeah, I see. Look, I love this book because when you came to Tribes Press and I saw your manuscript and I read the first paragraph, I go, oh my God, this guy can write. You know, you
Yeah,
see so many manuscripts that come in the door and they're not in great shape. I always believed, in my own head, I thought everybody could write. But until I opened a book publisher in Galway, Tribes Press, I realized that everybody can't write. And some people need ghostwriters. But this was beautiful. The writing was so honest, so raw. It was perfect. It was just, it pulled you in straight away. I'm just going to, so on our blurb here, we have written, this gritty tale of drugs, depression, and disillusion perfectly encapsulates Ireland's new lost generation. That is a sentence in itself. So tell us all about this book.
yeah. It's I suppose I didn't really set out to kind of get a generational thing across. That wasn't my aim really. But then it kind of became something that I felt I was speaking from this perspective of people my age, I suppose, you know, from things that I've seen, from people I've met, and that kind of thing. They were all going into this book in some aspect. So it's essentially about three friends who go around Galway City, and they're living in Galway City essentially, and they get mixed up in drugs. They get mixed up in they have tough lives. All three of them really, they have tough lives in one shape or another, you know. So really it's about their kind of, I wouldn't say adventure, but their kind of their lives in Galway City over the period of maybe a year and a half, and their exploits with drugs and their experiences with drugs and all kinds of other experiences that I've kind of had in my own life as well.
Hmm. I noticed like I love the fact that it's raw. I love the fact that it's gritty. I love the fact that it's dark in places and so honest throughout.
Mm.
I love that about the book. When the first edit was being done, the editor here in Tribes Press, she said to me, Marguerite, don't read this book, you wouldn't be able for it. Because I write children's books. But
Yeah.
they obviously didn't know my own past. But the thing is that I think it can touch the heart of anybody. There's something in it that everyone can connect to. And that's what I love about this book. And drugs is so prevalent. Like they're so easily accessible to
Mm.
anybody, teenagers, adults. Like they're so easy to come by. And I don't think people realize how easy they are to come by. You can get them anywhere you want.
Right.
So it's and we as a society, I think, have fallen into addiction, be it drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever the addiction is, we've fallen into it, because we're genetically predisposed to become addicts before we even touch that thing, that addictive substance. And then you have the people in life who are not necessarily prone to addiction, but there are so many pain medications now that a lot of stars have fallen prone to. They've become addicted to the likes of Lyrica, a simple pain medication that is given by GPs in Northern Ireland, and has resulted in an epidemic of drug addiction in the north, but are by neurologists in the south. But still, it's people who are caught blindsided. You take a drug and you think I'll be okay, and the next thing you're hooked. And it's
Mm.
that whole underworld, or that world of addiction, that world of drug dealing, drug taking in Galway, which is great to see, because it is there, it exists in every city, and we try to deny it, but it is there. And tell us more about that. Tell us more about the rawness of the drug dealing, the drug taking, the drug story in Galway.
Well, firstly, I'll just say that I think anyway, with addiction, there's always some kind of pain behind it,
Mm.
some kind of trauma, particularly from the child period, that there's some kind of pain or some kind of a lack of maybe love or something of that kind,
Mm.
that can kind of lead to an addiction. And again, as well, an addiction doesn't always have to be to drugs. I mean, we go there in our minds. We always think
Yeah.
an addiction is drugs and alcohol or something of that kind. But we're addicted to our phones. We're addicted to work. We're addicted to many other things. So I mean, addiction is very, very prevalent, and a lot of the time we don't know we're addicted either, and we can't admit to it. Um, but the rawness as well. I mean, I think I kind of had to write with the rawness in
Mm.
order to get the point across. I didn't want to glamorize drugs. That wasn't something I wanted to do, because there is always some. I mean, Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He says that there's always a downside of an addiction or of pleasure. That
Yeah.
with pleasure there comes pain. So I wanted to get that across. And really, I think drugs are prevalent everywhere. It's in Galway as well is no different. So that's just what I wanted to get across, was the rawness of it, and the kind of. No, I took it to an extreme as well. I wanted to get the point across quite clearly,
Yeah.
that drugs just aren't the answer to your problems, in a sense.
And I noticed that you have an uncanny ability to be able to carry your reader. And it's
Mm.
something we spoke about in the editing process, just to be able to bring your reader along, carry them through the book. And you did it really, really well. Would you like to say a little bit about how you were able to carry that reader? What did you have to introduce to the book to make sure that reader was with you all the way to the end?
Yeah, there was. I mean, the very first manuscript was dark, was
Yeah.
extremely dark, and probably too dark.
Yeah.
I remember you guys at Tries Press telling me that it needed to lighten up a little bit just to bring the reader along,
Yeah.
and that was exceptional advice, because I suppose I kind of kept a train of thought that was dark, and I wanted to amplify that as much as I could, and then I was losing the reader maybe
Mm.
in that sense. So that was one thing that I needed to do, was to lighten it up a bit with, I don't know, maybe a few jokes, a few things on the side, that was um, just to give the reader space to breathe,
Mm.
essentially. And then if you can kind of give a rhythm to the writing as well, if you can make it lyrical, or if you can add in, funny dialogue or something like that, or a lot of the book, there's bits of songs and that kind of thing. So it just kind of breaks it up a little bit from the internal monologues that Mike, the main character, is having a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I found that you had a wealth of knowledge when it came to English literature and philosophy. You seem to
Mm.
know things that nobody else knows. He had that mind that has retained this amount of information, and it was fantastic to see it come through your book. Do you have a love for philosophy?
Definitely, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd say first off, with philosophy, I think philosophy gets a bad name. I mean, even my brothers here, whenever I start talking about philosophy, they go, oh, again.
Yeah.
But we tend to think of it as something that's very academic, especially now.
Mm.
Maybe so much more in the 20th century. It was very, very academic, and it was all dense books and that kind of thing. But if you go back to the Greeks as well, I mean, their philosophy was was practical, and it was for everyday life. You know, with Socrates and Plato and all the other guys, all those other guys.
Yeah.
So I didn't always have a love for philosophy, you know, because I was in college and I remember doing Plato's Cave, and I thought this is rubbish. I don't understand any of this. I don't get the metaphor. I don't. And
Mm.
I was obviously somewhat in the cave,
Mm.
you know, not getting the whole idea of it. So and I remember speaking to somebody about it, saying that I was studying Plato's Cave in college, and I think it's all rubbish. And they were telling me, but it's genius. It's brilliant. It's unbelievable literature. It's unbelievable philosophy. And I didn't get it. I distinctly remember that. And then, as life kind of tends to do, things happen and you get challenged.
Mm.
And it was once the challenges came in my life that I had to kind of find something to kind of bring me across the line, you know, to get
Yeah.
into a place where I was comfortable in myself, you know. So philosophy definitely helped, definitely.
And did your main character Michael, did he get to that place where he was more comfortable in himself? Did that happen for him? Where did, at the end of the day, you know, there are many stories that end and really they round it all off and it's nice and tidy and they all lived happily ever after. But did Michael, are we left with an open end to this story? Don't tell us too much now about the ending, but did...
No. I think definitely it's not tied up in a sense that you can say, okay, things are for the better or something along those lines. I think more so it's kind of a case of he's in the process of dealing with all his trauma and dealing with all his grief. You know, many things happen in his life that influenced him. So he's still dealing with it. And I think things happen as well along the course of the book that kind of challenge him even more.
Yeah.
And then there's the addictions maybe that he might have that kind of propel him even more into sort of darker places. So
And
I
I love,
wouldn't say that he
sorry,
came to an enlightened state. I wouldn't go that far.
I love that type of book because it's honest. You know, you have the honesty of saying, okay, um, this is life, this is what trauma does, and often trauma lives with you for your whole life, and it's just how you cope at each level with each new event that comes into your life, and how you can cope with the original trauma, or the original trauma that has led to an addiction or has led to whatever it is in your life. And I love that about your book, that it's not and they all lived happily ever after, but I do like the ending though too. There's something very powerful in that ending, and I can't wait for people to get hold of Binge and read this book and enjoy every page down to the, don't read the last couple of pages until you get there. But it's a very good book. It's an excellent book. We've really enjoyed it here in Tribes Press. We have thoroughly enjoyed you as an author because it's amazing to read your work. I think this is only the beginning of a very long career for you, and I hope and I wish and I hope that you have immense success as an author, because you have the ability. You have incredible, you're intelligent, you're articulate, you have an ability to carry your reader right through your book with absolute ease and absolute precision in your writing. So fair play, it's very rare to find that. And I wish you the very best of luck. And I hope that I will be seeing your name in lights in another year. So
Thanks
fingers
very much,
crossed.
Emily.
This is kind of like being compared to train spotting at the moment. So that's a real compliment when people say, "Oh God, that's like train spotting, that book." So
Yeah,
fingers crossed you'll have a film out of this.
I hope so. That'd
Yeah,
be great.
that'd be great. So if anybody wants to get this book, where can they get it, Lorcan?
They can get it on the Tribes Press website. There's a you can actually follow Tribes Press on Facebook. Isn't it on
Facebook,
Facebook?
Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is. Yeah.
Whatever you like.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they can purchase it there. Thanks a million, Lorcan, for your wonderful interview, and I will wish you the very best in all you do in your writing career.
thanks so much.